The princess with blue eyes who possessed spiritual magic. The night she was born, the wind stopped. Not slowed, not softened, stopped. The torches lining the palace walls stood still, their flames frozen in place as though time itself had paused to witness what was coming. High above the cliffs of Valerian, thunder rolled across the sea. The kingdom had seen storms before. It had seen war, famine, betrayal, and blood. But never had the skies looked the way they did that night. Blue lightning split the clouds, and inside the royal chamber, Queen Seraphine screamed as the midwives rushed around her. No one in that room could have imagined that the child about to take her first breath would one day become the most feared and most misunderstood woman in the history of the kingdom. Because this was not just the story of a princess. This was the story of a prophecy, a betrayal, a kingdom built on secrets, and a girl whose eyes held a power ancient enough to bring empires to their knees. For years, people whispered her name in fear. Some called her blessed, others called her cursed. But the truth? The truth was far stranger than anyone could have imagined, because the very thing they feared in her was the only thing that could save them. Stay with me, because what happened to the princess with blue eyes will change everything you thought you knew about power, destiny, and fear. The kingdom before her. Long before the princess was born, Valerian was known as the kingdom that could not fall. Built atop sea cliffs and surrounded by silver forests, it was a place of beauty and discipline. Marble towers rose into the clouds. Markets overflowed with silk, spices, and gold. Soldiers stood at every gate in polished armor. To outsiders, Valerian looked perfect. But beneath that perfection was something older, something hidden. The people of Valerian believed deeply in signs. Omens shaped weddings, harvests, wars, even coronations. Every eclipse, every comet, every strange dream was recorded in the royal archives. And for centuries, one prophecy had remained sealed. Locked beneath the palace in a chamber only the king, the high priest, and the queen were permitted to enter. It spoke of a child born under a blue moon, a child with eyes like the sea, a child who would either restore what had been broken or awaken what had been buried. King Alaric knew the prophecy, but like every ruler before him, he dismissed it as myth. Until the signs began. First came the blue moon. Then the palace birds stopped singing. Then the sea pulled back from the shore for nearly an hour before crashing forward again in a wave so violent it shattered harbor walls. The kingdom was terrified, and in the middle of it all, Queen Seraphine went into labor. The birth of the princess. The room was silent when she arrived. No newborn cry, no movement. The midwives exchanged fearful glances. The queen, pale and exhausted, reached for her child. And then it happened. The baby opened her eyes. Bright blue, not ordinary blue. They glowed, softly at first, like moonlight on water, then stronger. The room flooded with pale light. Candles reignited on their own. The queen gasped. One midwife dropped to her knees and began to pray. Another fled the room in terror. The baby let out her first cry, and outside, the storm vanished. Just like that, as if the sky itself had been waiting for her. They named her Princess Alira. For the first few years, she was everything the kingdom hoped for. Gentle, curious, kind. She laughed often. She loved climbing the castle towers to watch the sea. She would sneak into the kitchens to share pastries with servants. And everywhere she went, strange things followed. Flowers bloomed where she walked barefoot. Wounded birds healed in her hands. Rain stopped when she cried. At first, people celebrated her. They called her the Moonchild, the blessed daughter. The kingdom adored her. But admiration has a dark twin, fear. And fear was already beginning to spread. The prophecy returns. When Alira turned 12, the high priest Malvek requested a private audience with the king. Malvek had served the royal court for over 3 decades. He was respected, feared, and known for never speaking unless absolutely necessary. That night, he entered the throne room carrying an ancient scroll wrapped in black cloth. King Alaric immediately recognized it. The sealed prophecy. Malvek's face was pale. He had been studying celestial movements, temple records, and energy disturbances beneath the castle. And what he found terrified him. The seal beneath Valerian was weakening. Centuries ago, before the kingdom existed, a dark force had nearly destroyed the realm. It was not a monster, not a beast. It was an energy born from greed, betrayal, and bloodshed. The first rulers of Illyrian had trapped it beneath the palace and swore never to speak of it again. But the prophecy warned that one day, a child with ocean eyes would awaken its prison. The king was furious. He refused to believe his daughter could be tied to something evil. But Malvek was relentless. He warned that Illyra's power was growing too quickly, and if left unchecked, she could destroy everything. The queen defended her daughter. She insisted Illyra was good. That power did not make someone dangerous. But doubt had already taken root in the king's heart. And doubt, in a palace full of secrets, can be more dangerous than any curse. Illyra grows into her power. As Illyra grew older, so did the mystery surrounding her. She began sensing things before they happened. She could feel storms days before they arrived. She knew when someone in the castle was lying. At night, she had dreams. Not ordinary dreams. Visions. She saw hidden hallways beneath the castle. She saw shadowy figures kneeling in underground chambers. She heard whispers calling her name. At first, she told her mother. Queen Seraphine listened carefully and comforted her. But even the queen was beginning to fear what these visions meant. The king grew colder. He ordered guards to monitor Illyra's movements. He banned her from entering certain parts of the palace. The princess noticed, and for the first time in her life, she began to understand that something was wrong. One evening, while walking through the western corridor, Illyra touched an old stone wall. Instantly, she saw a flash, a hidden chamber, a glowing seal beneath the castle, and a voice whispering, "You were never meant to fear your power." She stumbled back, shaken. That was the moment everything began to change. The night everything broke. On Illyra's 16th birthday, the entire kingdom gathered at the palace. Music filled the grand hall. Nobles danced beneath crystal chandeliers. The king smiled for the first time in months. To the public, everything looked perfect. But behind the celebration was tension. Malvek had warned the king that Illyra's 16th year would mark the prophecy's turning point. The queen begged him not to ruin their daughter's life over fear. The king said nothing. As the night went on, Illyra felt something was wrong. A heaviness in the air, a pressure in her chest. Then she saw him, a masked figure moving through the crowd, headed straight for the king. Time seemed to slow. The assassin raised his blade. Without thinking, Illyra reached out and screamed. What happened next became legend. A shockwave of blue light exploded from her body. Candles burst. Windows shattered. The floor trembled. The assassin was thrown across the hall. Guests collapsed in fear. And deep beneath the castle, something ancient woke up. The seal cracked. A sound echoed through the foundations of the palace, like a giant taking its first breath in centuries. The celebration turned into chaos. People ran, screamed, prayed, and when the dust settled, every eye in the room was fixed on Illyra, not with gratitude, with terror, betrayal. The next morning, the royal council demanded action. To them, the prophecy had come true. Illyra had awakened the darkness. They wanted her imprisoned, exiled, killed. The queen was horrified. The king was torn. He loved his daughter, but he loved his kingdom more. And fear was louder than love. That night, Queen Seraphine made her choice. She went to Illyra's room in secret. She was crying. In her hand was an old key, a key to the underground escape tunnels beneath the palace. She told Illyra the truth. The darkness beneath the kingdom was not her fault. It had been there for centuries, and someone in the royal bloodline had hidden the truth. Illyra was never meant to destroy it. She was meant to end it. The queen kissed her daughter's forehead and told her to run. For the first time in her life, Illyra saw fear in her mother's eyes. Not fear of her, fear for her. Illyra fled through the tunnels as soldiers stormed her chambers. She never saw her mother again. The years in exile. Illyra disappeared. For years, no one knew where she went. Rumors spread across the kingdom. Some said she drowned at sea. Some said she became a witch in the northern forests. Some said she was waiting. The truth was far more powerful. Illyra traveled beyond Illyrian, into mountains no map recorded. There, she found an ancient sanctuary guarded by women who understood spiritual magic. For the first time, she learned what her power really was. It was not destruction. It was balance, healing, truth. And through visions, she discovered the kingdom's darkest secret. Illyrian's first kings had not sealed evil to protect the realm. They had created it. Their greed, betrayal, and hunger for control had corrupted the land itself. The darkness beneath the palace was not a monster. It was the kingdom's buried sin, and Illyria had been born to confront it, not because she was cursed, but because she was the only one strong enough to face what everyone else refused to admit. The return and resolution. Years later, darkness spread through Illyria. Crops failed. The sea turned violent. The palace cracked from within. The people who once feared Illyria now prayed for her return. And one stormy night, she came back, no longer a frightened girl, but a woman who understood her power. She walked into the throne room as shadows consumed the walls. The king, older and broken, fell to his knees. Not as a ruler, as a father. Illyria did not come for revenge. She came for the truth. She descended beneath the castle into the chamber where the darkness waited. And there, instead of fighting it with rage, she faced it with acceptance, with compassion, with light. Because the deepest darkness is not defeated by fear. It is undone by truth. The seal shattered. Blue light flooded the kingdom. And for the first time in centuries, Illyria was free. Illyria stepped into dawn as the sun rose over the cliffs. The people bowed, not because she was royal, but because she had done what no king ever could. She faced what everyone else was too afraid to confront. And she chose healing over revenge. Because sometimes, the thing the world fears most is the very thing sent to save it. What would you have done if you were Illyria? Would you have forgiven the kingdom that betrayed you? Or would you have let it fall? Tell me in the comments. And if you love stories filled with mystery, emotion, and powerful twists, subscribe now, because the next story might be even more unbelievable.